You're
Okay.
going to present all the things.
Okay.
Then we chat afterwards.
Oh, good. Okay.
You happy like that? Good morning, Jonathan. You here with me? Are we together?
Good morning, Sabwabo and Python Africa.
Yes. How we gonna go about? I'm gonna give you a like an intro, then you can start, so
Oh,
that it
good.
can guide our conversation. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And for agriculture is a vast and a very important sector. I'm sure
Yes.
we will agree.
True.
Now, in your presentation, one of the things I know you're going to cover these points that I'm going to mention to you now.
Okay.
It's important for us to set context, and
Good.
setting up context. I am saying, how do we leverage imagined and established technologies to improve the performance of African smallholder farmers? Okay.
Mm. Mm.
Um, from if we're looking at technology today, from online technical support, which is what is being brought by technology in the agri-tech space, to
Mm.
market connections at your fingertips, to drone
Mm.
surveillance and sophisticated soil, water, and topography maps. Um, the
Yes.
4IR is transforming the world around us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
um, and not leaving farmers behind. How is 4IR making a difference? How does 4IR enable the agri-tech space? Is it not secret that many farmers, it is not a secret that many farmers operating as small scale farmers, especially those that just started, are
Mm-hmm.
often left out and have difficulty in accessing markets. Okay, so how do we ensure, through your participation in the organization in Nigeria, how do you link the startup companies or the small scale farmers that have just entered the space? How do you assist them with technology? And some of the questions that I need us to look at is, are we in a position are we in a position to develop and roll out various high tech or high impact solutions in the horticulture and animal production sectors that will make our valued African smallholder farmers more competitive and improve their efficiencies? Okay? Now, how do we improve efficiencies in farming to increase yields, create consistency, and improve quality? How do we reduce cost of production? How do we conserve our natural resources? How do we reduce post-harvest losses? You've mentioned, when me and you were talking the other day, that we are wastage is over $4 billion. Okay?
Yes.
How do we improve access to local and international markets? How do we improve compliance with legislation and other regulations? Africa itself, because of different countries, we've got different legislations and regulations. The Europeans who wants to export or import from Africa, they've got different regulations.
Mm.
How do we align these and make sure that our small scale holder farmers are ready? How do we strengthen linkages through the value chain? Okay, and make better access to information intelligence available to farmers, so they can make more informed decisions around not just production, but access to finance, access to markets, and new developments. I think from my side, those are the few probing questions that I'm leaving with you, and I know you will answer these.
Okay, thank you very much, Sanwabo. All right, so it's going to be a chat. So, of course, it's going to be after the entire presentation. We are going into chat to begin to address the specific issues that you have mentioned. And I'm
Yes,
very sure at the end of the day, we'll find solution to most of the things that affect us in Africa that has not allowed us to scale agricultural industry in Africa, even if it should be the largest employer of labor. Of course, it is not contributing that much yet. But we have hope.
yes,
We believe in this industry. We trust this industry to transform and revolutionize Africa industry. It's from here we can begin to think about the industrial revolution in Africa. It's with this
hmm
we can begin to talk about technology development and advancement. Of course, if agriculture become the mainstream of our economy, then we'll be able to have enough value to begin that even the local person in the remote villages will have economic power to do what he wants to do without waiting for politicians to come and dash them money before they can manipulate them to vote for the wrong person. Of course, in this meeting today or in this conversation, we are going to be dwelling on these issues that you have raised so that we can have solutions to what we want to bring. Of course, I will you permit me to start my presentation. Then after that
Yeah.
we can go into
Before you start, Jonathan, please explain to people that are watching who is Jonathan.
okay. Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Sanwabo. Good morning, Paita Africa. Good
Good
morning,
morning,
dear
Jonathan.
Thank you. Good morning, dear listeners, and good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for the opportunity you are giving to me to come and discuss the issue of agriculture in Africa. Abu Jonathan is my name. I am the Chief Strategic Officer for Jada Global Limited. Jada Global Limited is an organization that has started over 5 years ago as a business name. So I was brought into that organization because of my experience to help in the drafting of financial modeling of a grant that the business they wanted to access from the federal government of Nigeria. The grant was about 1.9 billion naira. Of course, so there was a committee that was set up to handle this. At the end of the day, Jonathan handled the entire process, bringing that financial modeling into life. However, we could not submit the financial model because of COVID, and of course, we have not been able to implement that project. However, the issue of Jada Global Limited came into being as a result of that financial model, which I designed personally for Jadai Farm. At that time, the organization was called Jadai Farm as a business name. So it's not limited by shares at that time. But today, Jadai Global Limited, as it is limited by shares. So I co-founded with my partner. So, and then we started the issues of looking into the industry, looking into the emerging market, which is the African market, to look at what are the gaps, what can we do. So we begin to see some gap in the telecom industry, we saw gap in the logistic industry, we saw gap in the agri sector. But of course, what affects the local person in the remote African community is agriculture. How
Mm,
do we give value to these people? And we begin to leverage on agriculture and mining, because most of the mining sites that we have, they are located in the remote areas, and therefore you need to engage these people well so that the youth will not have what we call youth, rural, urban migration. So when you
mm,
engage them at their local community, they can make money for themselves and also contribute to the development of their community. So we start with mining. So if you see our activity on the internet, you likely see a lot of mining activities or agricultural activities. But the dominant of it all is agriculture, because we
mm,
found that there is serious shortage of food globally, and therefore a person that has not eaten cannot even go and start mining. Therefore there must be an abundance of food for us in our local communities before we even start thinking about selling it or start thinking about going to mine. So we saw that there is a big gap that we need to fill, and that is why we came into agriculture. So I have worked, by my experience, I have worked with the government, the Nigerian government at the local level for about 9 years before I left the government to into private organization. In the government, I started as clerical assistant, that is the rudiment of administration, to grow to become a senior administrative officer one before I left there. So you see the progression. I've learned the roadmap, I've learned the government strategies, I've learned all the things that are required for government to be able to deliver services to their own people before I left. When I was leaving the government, I have this that I must make contribution in the private sector, and that is why I came to the private sector. Coming to the private sector, I work with ASA Mansard Nigeria. The ASA Mansard Nigeria, ASA is a global insurance company, and they have done a lot of things in the world, and you can check them out. Of course, the aspect of the business that we were involved is the health aspect, which is the HMO. So in that place, I was employed there to as a transaction officer. So working there for 3 years, and I knew that coming here, I'm not going to be long. So I worked there for 3 years, resigned, and then started Jada Limited. So in there, when I came, I saw that there is a gap in the industry, big one, which we have not yet filled. The gap is that it's about only 30 to 40% of the working class in Africa that have access to healthcare, which is a major thing. But if within the organization where I work, I saw that there's an administrative lag, which will not allow us to leverage on technology. So I begin to push technology in that place. That means that there was a gap of manual computing and then time wastage. So the only way we can scale up is for us to begin to use technology to deliver services to providers,
mm,
which are the hospitals. So and then I communicated to my boss and I told him that this is what I'm seeing. Unfortunate for us, we didn't know that COVID was coming. And that was the solution that their organization capitalized to make sure that they deliver service even while COVID was going on. Because hospitals could not send their manual reports to the HMOs. And of course, you know what the implication of that? That is billions of naira will be stuck without delivery and without payment. And
mm.
hospitals will not be able to deliver their service because HMOs are owing them. So that particular solution that I brought in save us this in Nigeria. I led a team that engaged in this technology transformation all over the 36 states, including the federal capital. So which was at the time I was leaving, we have done almost 95% successful rates, which is high for me. So this is Jonathan in a brief. Thank you very much. If you want to know more about
Uh,
me, you can check me on LinkedIn. I am there, or we can have a
pl-
conversation on
please,
LinkedIn.
Jonathan, please stop that. Say hide that sharing. Hide that thing that is
Ah,
that is yeah. Say hide the buy the yeah hide yeah. Okay. Now people can see your email address. It's okay.
okay.
No,
All right,
thank
good.
you very much for the brief introduction. We can get into the presentation.
All right. So our conversation is around scaling agri-tech in Africa, when what comes to your mind when you hear about scaling agri-tech in Africa? It's not only to scale agriculture, how can we do it sustainably?
Mm-hmm.
That should be what should be ringing on your mind. Because
Yes.
if we cannot do it sustainably, we have seen that Africa has a culture, unlike Germany and other European countries. You will see that most of the company and industry that were founded in the 1900, 1800 are still existing because it was sustainable for their children to take over from their parents. But in Africa, it's not like that.
Mm.
You see that a company that started in the 60s, in the 1950s, they are nowhere to be found again. They are already replaced. So we not only to scale this industry, can we do it sustainably? I think that should be a question that we should go with it. How can we do it sustainably? Maybe should be another conversation again as we move
Yes.
on in this conversation. Because if we cannot do it sustainably, we will not be found nowhere. We will return to zero. It's like two step forward, three step backward. So we must think sustainability, and which is the major agenda of sustainable development goal. We must pursue that to deliver that in Africa. How Having said that, you will look at my objective for today is to
Mm.
begin to discuss what Jada Global is doing currently in the Agri-tech. The second objective is to discuss the causes and effects of the topic to Africa and Europe. Introduction. Two things you believe with me that two things is likely to be the thing that will last in the world, which is agriculture and technology. How, you ask me? Man cannot do without food. And all the things that man uses in the construction of shelter, they are gotten from the field. When you talk about sand, you talk about roofing, you talk about zinc, you talk about all the construction that you have is gotten from the ecosystem of agriculture. And how will man begin to evolve and do it better will be leverage on technology.
Mm.
You see that technology and agriculture are going in the same direction, and the quest of man will not end because he will continue to innovate. And then in the process of innovation, he will bring technology to make him adapt to his environment well. And that is why I believe that the only thing that will sustain the world and the only thing that will last is agriculture and technology. Of course, our people, of course, they were dying. African people were dying as a result of what we call traditional medicine. But as you know, that herbs have helped our great grandfathers to have long life expectancy. Some of them live 102, living on herbs. Africa currently life expectancy is about 49 to 50 years of age. That is the life expectancy of an Africa. And we are taking drugs, the modern drug. That is not to say that the herb is more important than the medicinal innovations that we have seen. But I'm just saying that agriculture is going to be the only thing that will cure the illnesses and the issues that we have in the world if we can do them organically. Let me quickly note that the world economy is not balanced. How? And I will use Europe and Africa. One, the technology that we have in the European world is in abundance. And because it's in abundance, they will need a place to deploy this technology for its usage. And in Africa, this technology is not in abundance, but the human resources to develop this technology is in abundance. But the capacity to develop this technology is nowhere to be found. And that made the world economy to be imbalanced. As for us to balance the world economy, because Africa has 60% of its arable land, the 60%, 60 to 65% of the world arable land is in Africa. Therefore, for us to utilize this land, we will need technology, we will need transfer of technology, we will need the presence of technology, we will need to empower the African population to begin to think technology and begin to engage this technology on agriculture. And that is when we begin to see a world economy that is balanced, a world economy that is empowering every individual on the continent, because agriculture is at the remote, at the level of villages, at the level of hamlet. So we'll also begin to see that rural urban migration will be limited drastically. And then in the city will be discongested as we have in Lagos today. If you come to Lagos today, a short distance that will take you 20 minutes to get to where you are going to take you 2 hours in sometimes 3 hours, because the influx of people that are coming from the remote communities. That is just one. When you look at the exodus of Africa from African continent to Europe, what is causing it? Have you sat down to look at why are people migrating from Africa to Europe? Why is Europe opening their borders to Africans to come in? So when we look at all of these pertinent questions, when we look at all of these things, we see that the world economy is not balanced. And the only thing that can balance the world economy is agriculture. And therefore, when we have agriculture at the center of our discussion, we see that we'll begin to look at an economy that is balanced, because we're talking about value created that is received at the end of transaction. So therefore, you can see that in issues of linking African producers to the world market will be very easy. Okay, but now it's not very easy, because the local farmer in my community does not know that there's a market overseas, and because he does not know, he cannot move his product and have value overseas. And you see that food is in shortage in Europe. Even in Africa, we can see there's food shortage. But of course, in our in our family locations, we can have food to eat because we are producing subsistently. So you see that the food production strategy that we want to have has to be balanced, where a particular continent is producing for the world, and then a particular continent is bringing technology to another continent. So you see, it's a win-win situation. But as it is now, it's not a win-win situation. We are deficient in
Mm.
technology. Europe is deficient in arable land for cultivation of food. Another issue that might come up is the issue of subsistency. Combine the entire population of subsistence farmers in Africa, we will still have problem of food scarcity, because there's no commercialization. And how do you do commercialization without mechanization?
Mm.
So African market require technology like data-driven devices to have precision farming. As it is now, we are dependent on weather. We are dependent of a lot of things to determine what we are going to be doing. Africa market require irrigation kits and accessories. Why are we not having companies that are into production of irrigation materials, unlike India or China? You see that this is required. You see that these companies are needed, because the African farmer is beginning to understand that I cannot continue to depend on rain to be able to produce fruits, to be able to produce food for the world. So therefore, irrigation kit is very important for us to begin to produce in dry season and in rainy season as well.
mm,
Mechanization equipment. It is said that in Nigeria, for instance, maybe it's obtainable everywhere in the in African continent. There's one tractor to about maybe 3,000 hectare in Africa. That is the tractor that is used for the plowing or for the turning of the soil, because are not available. And if it's available, it's costly. Farmers cannot go into it. They cannot buy it because they don't have value from what they are even previously producing, because they don't have access to the premium market. So they don't even have money to begin to purchase tractors or to process all these big machines that can go into production of commercial farming. So you see that Africa truly is an emerging market for the people that develop this technology, that they can bring it or set up the factory on the soil of Africa so that it can be easily be accessed by the farmers that require them or that needs them. Post-harvest devices. How do we maintain a moisture content? How do we dry our produce that we harvest immediately from the farm? We need this, because without this there will still be wastage. Without this there will still be a gap. What are the measures that were put in place to control this? It is little. It's not compared to the food that we waste in the African continent. And we are shouting food security, food scarcity, and all of those things. And food is being wasted.
mm,
What about logistics? Let me just share a story with you. We went to a village where we were supposed to move maize from. It took us almost 7 days to have a logistic company to move our product from that place to the city center. Time is wasted. Time value of money. That's what we're
mm,
discussing here. So we need a technology that can drive our logistics system in Africa. That at your at your fingertip, you can say, all right, I have to move my goods from point A to point B, and then you have the service deliver within a turnaround time that is considerable. Training. We're talking about training. Most of our farmers are not trained. They believe in what their forefathers handed over to them, and then they cannot scale. There's no scalability. And because even the people that were students or our graduates that are finished for school of agriculture, they are not even into practicing agriculture. That is the painful thing. So the farm is left for the older people, is left for the people that have been doing it before, is left for the people that do not have access to white collar job. So even the graduate that we have on the street of Africa that says, I study agriculture from the University of so and so, cannot even go into agriculture because he don't find it very interesting, which we might be
mm,
discussing along the line as we progress. So training is not there, farming extension is not there, monitoring, which is involved in all of those things, and technology transfer is all that is required for us to begin to see scalability in this field. To discuss what Jada Limited is doing presently, our organization is into agri-tech, real estate, mining, oil and gas, telecom, and Internet of Things. That is Jada's Global. But of course, as I mentioned in my introduction, I said that what you will see us doing now is dominant around agri-tech and mining. But even in these two, we prefer to begin to engage more in agri-tech, because this is where we have problem more in Africa. all of the places that were mentioned that we have seen a gap that we are looking at is something that we can partner with maybe investors from Europe to help us deve- to help us scale up the ideas and bridge the gap that we see in those industries. But of course, the immediate need for us that we see is agriculture. What is our objective as a company? To pioneer and implement global concern using technology, hunger and poverty, to fight hunger and poverty through agricultural initiatives, food security to make everyone a farmer, making food surplus and affordable, which as we go on I will discuss. Employment, to engage and empower the youth and women in a gainful employment in the sector we find ourselves. National contribution, to significantly contribute to the GDP of Nigeria, whether you are in Angola or you are in Kenya or you are in Guinea-Bissau. Our main aim of coming into agriculture is to make sure that the African countries will be able to have significant improvement on their GDP. So if we find ourselves in maybe Tunisia, for instance, our aim is to make sure that there is an improvement on the GDP of that country. And we have the machineries, we have the tech, we have the skills to begin to make sure that is brought to go, and then it will be very, very obvious. Small farmer strategy, to design specific, smart, and adaptable operational framework for smallholder farmers. What we see in the industry today is distrust. We have been there. We have seen that even some of the farmers to themselves, they are not being sincere. So when you deploy money to them and when you give them money to go and carry out a task on the farm, they divert the money to healthcare because their pregnant woman is sick, and so they move the money that is meant to be for the farm into solving the healthcare problem of their family. So there's diversion of funds that is meant for agriculture in among the smallholder farmers. So we have designed a strategy that will help to curtail that and make sure that everything is moved into agriculture. If the money is meant for agriculture, it goes into agriculture. We have that strategy on ground. What is our service? Our Agritech service. Presently, in our own industry in Nigeria, we have in one location we have access to 4,000 hectares of farmland. This farmland is just one location in Nigeria. Imagine if we have this number of hectare in one location. So therefore we saw that because most people does not have know that there's an abundant farmland in Nigeria, we say that okay, we are going to bridge between the people that want to buy the land and the owners of the land. So we move straight into solving the problem to say, all right, we are selling farmlands. So if you want to buy land, you buy land from us as a company, which will be more responsible than dealing with the local people. So we are into sales of farmland, and then you buy it cheaper if you are buying from us than the people in the local community. So you see that we are solving that problem. Then we say, okay, don't go into farming without a business plan to guide you, because most farmers that we have come across says that agriculture is not viable because they do not see the pro and con of going into agriculture, and therefore they rush into agriculture and they rush out and they say agriculture is not viable. That is not true. We will tell you that yes, agriculture is viable. And how is it viable? By business plan. All the indices that you need to see before you go into farming in terms of capital expenditures, operational costs, pre-operational costs, all the running costs, your P&L, your profits and loss, your cash flow system, your sensitivity analysis are captured in our business plan to make sure that we see if it's not viable, if the product or the value chain that you are going to is not viable will tell you that it's not viable from the beginning, so that you not go and spend your money. We do also what we call land survey and registration to make it very easy. All the document that you need from government we can give you if you are buying the land from us. We do soil test, geophysics, which is to determine the point of drilling a borehole. Because we encourage our farmers to go into what we call irrigation system, so therefore borehole system is required for lands that are not close to a sustainable stream, that is stream that can flow throughout the season. Okay, so we'll dig bore on the farm. We'll dig bore on the farm to make sure that there's water to the plant. That is all. We'll also do irrigation implementation, planting, staffing, and then we'll hand over. That is what we do for setup services. So we'll also go into farm management, which is small farmers support strategies, which I've mentioned before. Then we also do into setup for management, and then day-to-day running the farm, value addition factories. We also go into value addition, setting up a value addition factory for those that need it. We also go into off-taking and sale and export. So these are the things that we do for management. So it's an holistic approach that we do for management services. Then we go into green sourcing, supply, training and consultancy, value addition storage, local sales, export, training, entrepreneurship, and then consultancy on Africa emerging markets. These are the things that we do. So to discuss these in the scope of market and perspective to Africa and to Europe, I have this small illustration that you are seeing before you, and I call it relational approach. When you look at this diagram, or when you look at this sketch that I have here, you see a man, you see technology and innovation, you see agriculture at the top there. The reason is because when you look at farming in its holistic perspective and approach, and the beginning of human evolution, and you trace it, it's more likely that Africa uh, indigenous people started agriculture before Europe, and therefore their first approach is to move to the farm and get what they want to get, and then they leave. And therefore Africa begin to understand domestication. They begin to understand how to settle down instead of wandering all about. So you see that farming started more likely in Africa than Europe. But of course, when Europe begin to go into Africa, they begin to see how can we do it better, because human interaction causes men to think. So when Europe came to Europeans begin to come to Africa, they begin to see that these people are using this implement, they are using this. How can we do it to scale it high? And then the issue of industrial revolution and all the things that have spring up for all to this time was that the European man believed that he needs to leverage on technology and innovation to begin to deliver value. Of course, for them to deliver this value, they need space. And unfortunately for them, that space is not, or that opportunity is not given to them in their own country. So of course, they need to develop this technology and deploy it to where it's required, which is Africa. You see the relational, and this will lead
Mm.
to rapid growth. But of course, we have not gotten to that growth yet, because just from my introduction, the world economy is not balanced, and this is not coming to us. We can stay on that conversation for long, but because this conversation is limited by time, we can take it up again. Challenges to scalable and sustainable agricultural uh, improvement in Africa. The scarcity of African mentor. Where are the people who can look up to in Africa to say that these are the people that have done well in the industry of agriculture? We always have a few. maybe you begin to call people like Dangote that have Dangote farms, and you begin
mm,
to go to them. But how accessible are these people? So if you mention Dangote, it's just one out of 250 million people in Nigeria alone. Do we have such people in South Africa? Do we have such people in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique? And if we have them in Mozambique and all of those people, how accessible are these people? How do they come to the youth to encourage us to go into farming? What do they see in agriculture that has brought them to where they are? So you see the issues that border mentorship is very is hampering the development of agriculture. You see in other countries or in the developed world, you see that this kind of people will have what we call maybe a center for training of specific or developing a specific seed, or a center for controlling of disease. But we don't have that, where youth will be called to submit application to be enrolled as student to learn this process, apart from the degrees or the certificate that they have in their hand. We don't have that in Africa, and which is a major challenge. We talk about monitoring and reporting mechanism is insufficient.
mm,
Our reporting system, you see a, an officer of the government, an official of the government coming to tell us about weather. At the end of the day, is the opposite. At the end of the day, the report that we get is opposite. But where can we have private individuals that will begin to go into what government also do to give us accurate information? We can't find them. Where can you go to say, okay, most of the tests we do, of course, the soil test and all of this is manageable. But when we want to do advanced tests, we send them abroad, and the reporting system is seamless. But in Africa, it will take months. It will even sometimes you wait and wait, you not get report. You have to go to their office. So our reporting system in relation to what we call Agri-tech, what we call farming approach, is not sufficient and is lacking. So we need people to begin to come into this that is specific, that is specific for monitoring. Nobody has ever come to my farm. The last year we went to a farm to do an assessment, to do a risk assessment because of the army worm on maize, army worm attack on maize. And we discovered that even that report was not sent to anywhere. And then Nigerian government will come and say so number of farm was attacked. Where the farm we went to was not part of your report, sir. You see, the reporting system in Africa is bad and is nowhere to be found. And so when government gives some report, it's an official report, it's not realistic.
mm,
So you see all of those is happening, and then international organization, maybe food and agricultural organization will take this report, or UN will take this report. UN, sir, these reports are not realistic. We are on the field. We know what is happening in this industry. How do they get this report? What is their evaluation process? What is the process that was involved in generating report that they sent to international organization, or that they sent to Ministry of Agriculture? We don't have a dashboard where we can say this is what happened on my farm today. I just go into that dashboard, I send my report. Nothing like that. And these are the things that paid us as youth, and we're not happy about it. This will make us not to increase efficiency, not to even talk about effectiveness or sustainable. I was talking about sustainability, not only to scale this industry sustainably, but also to begin to look at the issues specifically. Scarcity of precision farming technology. We don't have drone. You cannot fly drone anyhow in Nigeria because of security reason. I don't know in other countries in Africa, I don't know the legislation that backs up this drone flying. But for you to get drone, how many of my father in my village know where to obtain this license to fly drone? And in drone you can capture a data in split second, which lead us to precision farming, which also lead us to curtail wastage. In fact, if you have drone, you know where the problem is and you can pinpoint that place and address that issue, which is part of the issues that we'll also discuss as we move on, as we maybe begin to have chat or questions. Then funding is a major issue. And I don't think that Europe is wanting to continue to fund African farmers because they might say that they are not getting value for the fund they have invested. But the issue is that how do you fund these farmers? How do you fund these farmers? Do we need to re-evaluate the process of funding the farmers? Yes, we need to re-evaluate the way you fund the farmer because the target people are not targeted. The money does not go to the target people.
Jonathan,
Uh, yes,
Jonathan,
yes,
your discussion, my brother, the points you're raising are critical. They are critical. You are covering legislation as a hindrance. You are covering mechanization. You are covering lots of things. But the time that we have is going to be a negative factor to you.
wow,
My
wow.
my suggestion to you. Let's go through quickly the points that you have. No, don't jump, don't jump. Let's have series two
Okay, all right, okay, all
and
right. Let me.
go into detail on these things, more detail, and then we cover legislation properly.
Okay,
We cover technology issues, why there's no quality of products, why there's a problem with logistics, as you've indicated, why there's no progression forward for Africa versus Europe, that Africa started with civilization, but Europe took over and they improved on what they learned from us, which is Africa.
yes,
Am I
yes,
covering you well? These are the things that you're covering.
yes.
So let's go over the challenges and other things, and you go over hype because we are 7 minutes to go. We can take it another
Wow,
up to
okay,
maybe 10, up to maybe another maybe 10, 15 minutes. Then
all
we
right,
close it and we set up an other session and we have the conversation.
oh, good.
Are you happy with that?
Yes, thank you very
Okay.
much. Yes, thank you very much. All right, inadequate farming hub that has technical managerial and off-taking help. Farm management firms are in short, which where we come in. These are what we do, but there are not many. We don't have some of them in South Africa. We don't have. It's only in Nigeria you find only maybe two, like our own company. Lack of adequate tools are scarce. Imported tools are what we have, which are not adaptable. Farming is unpleasant to African youth. Africa banks and insurance companies have severe criteria, and most of the time they don't cover some emerging risk. Peculiarity is not taken into consideration by this bank and insurance company. They copy what is in Europe and bring it to Africa, and then it's not working for us. Agriculture or farming is characterized by obsolete practice. Closer look, 60% of arable land in Africa is not in use. Why? We don't have the skill. Not that we don't have the skill, we don't have the technology to leverage on it to begin to utilize this land. Post-harvest annual grain wastage of sub-Saharan Africa is 4 billion annually. That that evidence is on the internet. You can look up, you can check it. And then you see when you combine the 60% of arable land with this 4 billion annually, you know how much Africa is losing every year. 90% of youth are not into agriculture. Why? Because there's nobody to encourage them into agriculture. And if they are even encouraged, there's no fun to go into it. And these are the issues which we are going to talk. Failure of government intervention and program, conflict, insurgency, and corruption is on the part of the people that are in government. 70% of farmers are 50 years old and above. So that means in the next 20 years, we might not even have food, enough food, because most of these farmers would have died and their children have run to the city taking other jobs. So these are the things we look at. Recommendations, access to international market, which lead to value, farming technology, mechanization, funding, and training, which are the things that is required. Post-harvest wastage control technology are required. And note, this should be supported by a streamlined logistics system in Africa. Then, secondly, should be highly supported by clean energy. Thank you very much, Sawambo, and thank you everyone that has listened to me.
You can remove your presentation. Me and you, let's chat.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah, you've raised very, very interesting and challenging points.
Yes.
And in my knowledge, Jonathan, in my knowledge, and this is not, I can't generalize. The challenges in Nigeria are the same challenges in different other African countries in the continent.
True.
South Africa not excluded. Okay, you've got lots of old people that are still doing small scale farming. Their children are leaving the rural and weathers land into the cities, just like you indicated with Lagos. That Lagos, there's so many people in Lagos now. 20 minutes walk distance, it takes you 3 hours. That's what is happening everywhere because our and this is not a political platform, but it is important for us to we can't say these things without referring to government. If our government was looking after developing the rural areas and peri-rural areas, we would not have the influx into cities.
Mm.
I'm sure you agree with me.
True, sir.
So what do we do as ourselves sitting on this platform today? What can Jonathan do? But how many other Jonathans that are there? How many other Sonwabos that are there to make sure that there's a social impact in what we say? Okay. Um, how many of these guys that are billionaires today that are in farming as well that are freely available to be mentors, to guide and explain how did they make it? How can the rest of the other people break this barrier and make it? Because if you look at the SDGs, 2030 is next door. It's not far.
True.
Poverty is not going to be is not going to be eradicated the way we're going. Okay. Um, if we were to ensure that agriculture is merged as you presented it with technology, the two become one. The youth that don't want agriculture now, by default, if they specialize in the agri-tech space, they'll automatically be farmers. They'll be interested in using the technology innovations that they're coming up with in the same farms that some of them will be like to be farmers. Some of them will have interest in the land. So these are the type of discussions that I think between you and me, we need to have round two to discuss these things in detail. 4,000 hectares of land that you have now, um, only in Nigeria. What would Africa look like if you've got 4,444 in different countries? Let's say even if it's 20 countries in Africa. Okay. So these are the type of discussions that we need to have and say, how do other people sitting in other countries in Africa that don't know what to do with the land, but they've got access to the land, how do they collaborate with you and you guys come up with a good model that is going to ensure that there is high quality, high quantity, uh, precision engineered processes that can enable that not only small scale farmers use the food to sustain themselves, but to sustain the rest of Africa. I don't Let me hear from you.
Thank you, Samobo. Yes, so we have covered a lot of things in this conversation today, which are they are still scattered. We need to begin to harmonize them into strategic frameworks so that it can be easily be implementable. But I'll mention a few of what we can begin to do in the immediate, which is what
Mm,
we have found as a solution. That
mm,
of course we need to start having farm management servicing companies, just as we
mm,
have in the oil and gas industry, just as we
mm,
have in the telecom industry, just as we
mm,
have in the financial industry. Africa
mm,
see all of those things in this most of this industry, but they are not in agriculture. And that is why we
mm,
came up with that model to say we need a company that is specializing in managing setting up farms so that we can set up a large hectare of farm. If you have your money, you invest in it, and then you are the owner of the farm, but we are just a managing partner who are come to manage your farm or set it up for you and hand it over to you. The other issue of technology, which we have mentioned, which is the main bane of agriculture, is a major problem. We will not never, I will repeat again, we will never engage that 60 to 65% of the world arable land that is dominated in Africa. We will never use it if you don't use technology.
mm.
And how are we going to use technology to achieve this? Is the is the is the issue of beginning to partner with the European countries that have this technology and bring them. And how do we partner with them? Is for them to know that if they can invest in Africa, they can get their investment back. So they don't need to sell us this technology. What they need to do is to share in profit.
Good point. Good point. Look, I agree with you. One of the things that I'm going to ask you a question. You are in the Africa Alliance
Yes,
in the EU.
yes,
Maybe we need to have this discussion on this platform, me and you first.
yes,
Then, once we've covered all aspects that we need to discuss and have a
yes,
proper conversation where we sit and converse,
yes,
maybe we need to invite Africa Alliance to come and say their piece covering
yes.
Africa, covering Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we schedule it for some time, end of next month, but we start working on it now. You let me know when can we have a series two of this discussion. We need to have a series two of this discussion. Then we can have Europe coming to say their piece from a EU tech chamber perspective.
All
Because
right.
what you raising that they must not sell the technology in euros. They must come. This is in the collaboration between Africa and Europe. They must bring the technology as their contribution towards a commercializable, exportable commodities, and we then they share from the profit.
Yes,
I'm sure that's a discussion that we can have.
yes. The third aspect I want to discuss is the fact that
Yes,
our youth are interested, just as you mentioned earlier, they are interested in technology, very
yes,
interested. 90% of the youths are interested in technology, African youth, and they have the crude knowledge of this technology to tell you, and they have done well in that space.
mm,
But to the scalability, which require fund to move it from the crude point of view, is the issue that we have. And
mm,
then the training that is required to brand it for international standard is required. And the
mm,
business intelligence of aspect of it for the marketability of this product is required,
mm,
which is what I have told Europe Link Africa patients.
mm,
One of the discussion we had, that I have taken the pain to design model for business training for African youth,
mm,
which we need to begin to deploy, which is one of the discussion I'm going to have with her in my conversation with her. So, of course, the issue of negotiation, the ordinary graduate on the street of Africa does not know how to negotiate his way, which is one of the model that is part of our model. The marketability of the product that he has, he does not have it. The our Africa education does not equip they don't equip the Africa youth to do this. We have taken the play because we have this experience
mm,
to go into this. So all of these three trainings that I've mentioned is required in our continent for us to begin to help the African youth to become who they are. They are not
mm.
less of any other youth in Europe. They
No,
are,
no, no, I agree. Yeah.
or in America or in the Asian world. What China is doing today, that is what Africa is supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But of course, we cannot say we are disappointed in our government, because even the government is the product of the people. So what can we do as an individual, which is what I am doing. I've taken the pain to do all of this, sit down midnight, day and night, to begin to develop this strategic framework that can help Africa.
Mm,
And that is what we are doing, Sanwombo, to make people like us to come and speak on this matter at
mm,
our individual level. So we see that we are stronger together, even without our government. That does not mean that we don't need government that is productive. That does not mean that we don't need government that is measurable. Our It's not a political forum now, because I don't want to begin to go into the political aspect of the Africa economy, because I also graduate as a historian or an history student. I don't want to go into that. A lot of things have happened since our independence, and we cannot continue
yeah.
to blame colonialism. We cannot continue to blame neo-colonialism, imperialism, and all of those issues. The issues is the African people need to discover what they can do for themselves, and then how they can solve their problem. Thank you.
We need to believe in ourselves. We need to take Africa to the status of a powerhouse that it was when civilization, during the dawn of, of civilization. We need to get there. Jonathan. I am. I think we need to say goodbye, but please hold on there. Hold on there. Don't go. Uh, Goodbye, and thank you very much for you guys who have graced us, sorry, graced us with your presence, and for people who never fail to watch this show or conversation, and for those who are going to watch it while it is sitting on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube. Please join us next week again. Jonathan is definitely coming back. We are going to continue where we're leaving off today. It's not a full stop, it is a comma, and we are going to be talking. This is a very important discussion in the agri sector space, because as you all know, food security is critical. Food security is the way to keep Africa pumping. And if you listen in the past, or you've done research, Africa in the next 10 years is going to double in size. So for us to feed all those stomachs, for us to be able to be strong and compete against the other continents as it is projected, we need agriculture. So we really need to make sure that we use the land that is lying dormant, the land that is getting wasted. Let's all forge and unite in getting our continent to what it's supposed to be. Thank you very much for all of you that are here listening. We will meet again next week at 10 o'clock, which is next Tuesday, 10 o'clock. Um, Goodbye. Uh,